Hi, my name is Miranda Carney, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Ball Bearings magazine. This semester, we have looked at different topics related to the millennial generation. The news recently has been filled with stories of discrimination and prejudice around the country. This week, our latest digital issue explores the issues surrounding culture and race and how that relates to millennials. I am here with Jeremy Irvin, the senior editor of this week's stories. Jeremy, can you tell me why it's so important that we talk about tradition, culture, and race?
Tradition, culture, and race are a large part of how we define ourselves and can be a large part of how we live our lives. And prejudice is kind of the act of having a preconceived notion, a negative preconceived notion about the other people's groups without having experience or knowledge otherwise. So let's take a person who defines themselves based on their religious community, at least in part, and you have somebody else who has a negative opinion of that religious community. So they extend their bias against that other individual because of their preconceived notion of their community. This can include overt discrimination or just like silent resentment. And it's also possible to create a tradition or culture around prejudice in and of itself, as opposed to social class, ethnicity, religion, or anything else you can think of.
Okay, a lot of time we talk about privilege. So how can privilege filter people's experience and how they see these things?
Like, some kinds of personal interactions don't just happen to everybody. Like in our story, The American Muslim Divide, there's this doctoral student we talked to who came from Saudi Arabia to study, and he goes to a Ball State basketball game and he sits in the wrong seat by mistake. And the person whose seat it was gave him like a really hard time about being in the wrong seat, very small mistake, and also included a remark about, gave him a hard time about being in the country at all. And we had another column about white privilege where we talked to a student who was turned away from the door of a party on Neely Avenue because she was black. That is the reason the person she spoke to said she couldn't come inside, was because she was black. And so she didn't go back. It ruined it for her. And the point is that these things happen in Muncie. It's sometimes it's not Ball State students doing it, but sometimes it definitely is. And tolerance and inclusion are recent trends, relatively speaking, and not all individuals hold these values or see or interpret them the same way.
Okay, so what have your experiences been, and where have you seen these issues coming up in your own life?
I mean, in my experiences as a white male, it's mostly certain other white people very casual and open about racism around me and assuming that I will be fine with it. Just throwing around racial slurs, it'll catch you off guard sometimes, and sometimes you're often not in a situation where you can say anything about it. And it's weird when you're like a child and adults say it, or there's another kid on the bus, saying something crazy, or it's your boss at a job, but there comes a point where people are so insistent with it, you gotta say that's not me, I don't agree with you, don't just assume that I agree with you, that's what you believe, not me. And if you stay quiet, it just creates a room where it's not weird to say, just to promote your strange, hateful baggage towards people. And that's basically what we're trying to get away from, I think.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. So to view these stories and to learn more about how millennials view culture and race, visit ballbearingsmag.com.